As a teenager, I gave myself to drugs and alcohol and relationships, and really I got to a point where I just said, how did I get here? I was going to sleep at night and put my head on the pillow and I would say, I'm on this road and I can't get off. I knew that I was changing, but I didn't know what I could do about it. My name is Graham Biles and I just want to tell you about what God has done in my life. When I was 12 years old, our parents called us aside and said, I'm not sure the exact words they said, but it was like, Dad is going to die. And he'd got cancer from work that he'd done with asbestos. So he passed away 8 months later on the 1st of August 1988, and he was gone. So a lot of the authority was taken from my life. So I wasn't one of these kids and one of these boys that stepped up to the plate and got a job and helped my mum out, who now became a single mum with 2 kids still at home and one who'd already rebelled and moved on. But instead, I went inward and I became selfish. And I met a girl who introduced me to sexual relationships, who introduced me to marijuana, and I just went down that road and I started going to parties as a 13, 14-year-old, and I got into these parties where, you know, the only thing to do was get drunk. That was the main idea. And so that became my life. And so by the time I was 3/4 the way through high school, the teachers said, you know what, you're not doing any good here, it's time to go, you know. So I got kicked out of high school, me and my cousin at the same time, and I never went back. My cousin went back and finished high school, but I never did. So my life changed, and my everyday was just about getting drugs or getting alcohol as much as I could and just pumping that full of myself. That was what I did. I'd meet mates before they went to school and we'd get stoned, and then, you know, they'd go to school and I'd just go off and hang out and do whatever I did, you know. Before I left school, I managed to go to school. I wondered what it would be like to go to school drunk, so I got absolutely smashed on cheap wine and went to school and somehow made it through the day, but it certainly wasn't a great idea. I started taking what we call magic mushrooms and all this other stuff, and I ended up in hospital just taking all this stuff, and I ended up in hospital thinking that I was going to die. So I just cried out to God. I said, God, get me through this, you know, I'm gonna serve you, I'm gonna do this for you. And I started to feel a bit better, so I just got on with my life and I went back to being selfish. I just went on back doing what I was doing. I didn't get too much more into the drugs. I still did. I was still smoking marijuana and I was still drinking, but I started having anxiety attacks and panic attacks, and, you know, I started getting angry, you know. I wasn't violent with my girlfriend at the time, but I was starting to get angry and push around and all this sort of stuff and punch walls and this stupid stuff. But I knew that I was changing and I felt like I had no control over it. It was at that time that my cousin became a Christian. The same one, we got kicked out of school on the same day. He got saved. He became a Christian. He had never been to church in his life. And I went, wow, something has happened to this guy. He started praying for me. He had the church praying for me. I would be at a party sometimes, and then I would go out where it was quiet. I'd go outside or somewhere where it was quiet, and I'd have this thought in my head. It was like, this is not you, Graham, what are you doing? This is not you, Graham, what are you doing? And I would just get back into the party and just try and forget about it as much as I could and just get on with it. But I had this thing going on inside, this turmoil going on inside in my heart, knowing that this was the right thing to be doing, but I was drawn into sin. I was drawn into these parties and this drinking and this and having anxiety, and all this stuff was going on. I joined a band in a city about 2 hours away, so I was constantly traveling. And the drummer rang me one night and he goes, Aussie man, he goes, it's time, you gotta come now, you gotta come now. So I planned to move to this city. It was a couple of hours away. I planned to move, and I went and saw my cousin who'd become a Christian. I said, look man, I gotta move, this band is happening. We'd auditioned a singer, it's all starting to happen, we're writing songs. So, we gotta make this happen. And he said, Graham, you can move to that city and you can live for yourself. And you can end up in destruction, or you can stay here. You can live for God and have this blessed life, this life that He's got for you. And that just blew me away. You could say that to somebody at whatever, and they would just go, yeah, whatever, I'm going to do whatever I want. But at that time, at that point in my life, that really spoke to me and it hammered me. I was just like, oh, what do I do? And these anxiety attacks continued, and I went up to street parties in 1994, the New Year's Eve street parties that we have in the big main city here. And I was out there and I started drinking, I started having an anxiety attack, so I just drank harder, And I broke through it and it was fine. So it felt good, so I just kept drinking and I kept drinking and I kept drinking. And I got, we had a great time that night, going out and partying. And then we came back and went to sleep that morning. The next morning, I could not breathe. I felt like I was being strangled. I was having these panic attacks, cold water on my face. I couldn't snap out of it. And I cried out to God again. God, you've got to get me through this. God, take this away. God, I don't want this. And you know what? I got this peace and it came over me and I was like, I can do this. And I kind of tried for a few days to live okay. And then I just kind of went, and I went back and swear and went back drinking again, And it took one more time. Another panic attack. It was about the 22nd of January 1995, and I'd had enough. I was having this anxiety attack. I was at home by myself and I cried out to God. I said, God, I can't do this by myself anymore. I don't want to do this by myself anymore. Come into my heart. Forgive me. Help me to live for you. God, please forgive me. And I gave my life to Christ. And I will tell you, it sounds like a cliche. It sounds like something that Christians just say. But when I went outside, I'm serious. The place looked different. The sky looked different. I went downtown. People looked different. Women looked different. They looked like people. Not just objects for me, for selfish pleasure. My relationships changed. God started to help me clean up my life. He didn't do everything for me, but I can tell you there were some things. He just did miracles. Helped me to clear up debts that guys had left for me, and helped me to, get people to move out of this house. And it was just incredible what God did. And He gave me so much opportunity to share with some amazing people, with my friends back then, to share what God had done in my life. And He truly did a miracle. I was talking to someone the other day and they said, oh yeah, it's amazing what the mind can do. It's not about the mind. I didn't do this. My mind didn't do this. I had been trying and I couldn't do it. And it wasn't until I surrendered my life completely to Jesus and I said, no, that's it. No more. I can't take any more. That's when my life changed. That's when my heart was transformed and my mind was renewed. It wasn't willpower. It wasn't some neuroscience mind trick. It was the power of God, His Spirit moving in my life. And I thank God for that, and He can do the same for you. For anyone. I'd been brought up through church. I went to Sunday school from the age of 7 to 14, and when I was 14 I sat outside the church and Mum came out and said, Graham, are you coming inside? And I said, no, I'm old enough to make up my own mind, make my own decisions. I don't want to go to church anymore. And I just went out and got drunk. as a 14-year-old. And it was when I was 19, thank God, it was when I was 19, I'd done a full circle. In those few short years, 5-6 years, from 13 to 19, I almost completely destroyed my life. And I hurt a lot of people. But God changed all that work. He doesn't have a 12-step process. He can heal your heart. He healed my heart. And He healed my life. I thank God for that. I give Him praise, amen.